Hello, good morning, and welcome to another review of a short story collection. You know, those books that I don't read very often, but I'm reviewing a lot now. So, I've already reviewed the one that I was reading up from Gold Coast to Cairns on my road trip. I reviewed the second one that was in between the forward road trip, the boat and the back, and the return home. But when I finished that one, which was the Future I started on A Sea of Space, with the editor being William F. Nolan. Now, reflection. Okay, so I've only just now finished it. I've been home for a while. I was determined to finish it and get it done. This book, I am pretty sure, is one of the ones that I got on my huge books buying spree back in November. And I know for a fact that I've had this novel before because the image on its cover is beautiful and memorable. I'm pretty sure it's a futuristic sci-fi interpretation of the Klimt brothers type work, you know, The Kiss and all those other ones. Really love the image on the front. It's got depth. You can stare at it for a long time. When I bought it, however, I couldn't remember a single one of the stories inside, which surprised me. It also surprised me a little bit that I'd let it go. Now, I think it was from the November haul, like I said. If so, it cost me $1. I'm emphatically calling it that because I'm glad I only spent $1 on it. I made a deal with the op shop, by the way, that if I spent over $100 on books, I could get books for $1. I think they got the better part of the deal. I think I spent closer to $200, actually. Anyhow, this particular novel has this beautiful cover. It's a decent edition. It was fairly fun reading. I would overall only give it probably 2 out of 5 stars, maybe 2.5 stars out of 5 stars. Most of these stories weren't great, and a few of them were actively unenjoyable. As I waded through them, I noticed that most of them were from the 50s. I'm not sure who Nolan is. I've got a feeling that William F. Nolan was a major editor on the American SFF scene. I should probably have gone and researched him before I started this review, but I haven't. I've dedicated enough of my time to this book, I feel. So of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stories, almost all of them were published in the 50s, sometimes the early 50s, and it shows. There's 2, I think, from the early 1960s. And while there are a few good stories and there are a few names that I recognize in here, a lot of them are ones that I don't recognize. One of them, it's their only science fiction story, so it feels a little bit like a boys' club. It's like someone has got the right to edit a novel, and as a result they bring in all their mates, so all old boys' club in short story collection form. None of them, of course, are women, but there you go. That's neither here nor there. That is not the point. I'm not saying that men can't write good short stories, not by any means. One of them's Ray Bradbury. The first one is The Blue Bottle by Ray Bradbury, and it's a great story. That lot of these stories, however, are 2 stars, and that's being generous on my part. They're bad, they're antiquated. They promote values that are outright embarrassing. Not just racism, colonialism, etc. It's just there's this whole seeping attitude toward life and themselves that is a bit on the nose. However, stories from the 50s, I don't read that many. The editor's preface was what it was. One thing I do like about all of these, and this is the first one, you've got the editor's note in the front, and that's how I recognize anything about any of these authors, pretty much. So that's good information. But up here in the corner, which I probably can't get the camera to focus on, it says Port, the planet Mars. And I did like that each of the stories starts off with Port, the planet Venus, Port, the planet Earth, wherever they are. So that beautiful cover. Glad I only paid $1 for it. Let's get into it. The first one was The Blue Bottle by Ray Bradbury. I'm pretty sure that all of us classic sci-fi, old school sci-fi writers remember Ray Bradbury's Mars Chronicles. The Blue Bottle is apparently a story that hasn't appeared often, and I really enjoyed it. There was an element to the Blue Bottle that reminded me a little bit of the Mirror of Erised in Harry Potter. I think that was the first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So the Blue Bottle is this item that everyone on Mars, all the colonists, are searching for. And there's some of those beautiful evocative scenes that Ray Bradbury does about the Mars and the vanished cities and the delicate towers that collapse with a puff of breath. But the Blue Bottle is meant to be this huge treasure. And when it appears in the story, the first person who finds it says it's full of old bourbon. And after that, we realise that the Blue Bottle is actually full of what people want. And most of the people who are on Mars at this point aren't terribly happy. So there's some repercussions there. I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars when I first read it. In hindsight, I'll give it 5 out of 5 stars compared to some of the other ones. Second story is The Wind Blows Free by Chad Oliver. It's from 1957. It's a life ship concept. I really like the generation ship concepts and stories. The Mayflies is on the bookshelf behind me somewhere. That's absolutely my favourite. I've never let that one go. I reread it. So we've got a generation ship. A boy is born who does not fit in at all. It's one of those type of narratives. He's a loner. He eventually starts exploring the very strong parameters that are put on the people in this generation ship with unexpected, for him at least, if not entirely for us, unexpected consequences. Good story. I gave that one 5 out of 5. Don't think I know who Chad Oliver is, irrespective of that. So the third story is Society for the Prevention. I thought it was Preservation. Society for the Prevention by Ron Goulart. Ron Goulart, that's an author I know. He's fallen out of the common eye. But back in the day when I was young, my relatives had a lot of Ron Goulart, and I read a lot. His attitude to gender and sexual politics would make him very shaky ground, I feel, in the 2024s. Or else it would make him an unsung hero, depending which one. He didn't have a lot of filters in his writing. And anyway, so this one is allegedly about a surplus disposal saw on another planet. Now, Goulart doesn't write serious well. He writes off-the-cuff humour to the point where you're not sure if you're reading something real or if you're reading something that isn't. The humour is relentless, but it isn't so quirky that I don't enjoy it. Overall, I like Goulart's style. His humour, which is weird, is quite acceptable in short stories. It can drag a little bit from a full novel, but yeah. There was a lot of innuendo. The innuendo was fine. Bit of sexism that wore me down, but that's Goulart. Welcome to Goulart. I still gave this one 3 out of 5. It wasn't a bad story. I did enjoy it. The whole home surplus depot. We don't even have surplus depots in Australia for normal army goods, but in the future, planetary distribution, yada yada, you've got surplus depot on another planet. There's aliens. There's weird people. There is sexism, but you know. Anyway, next one is One Night Stand by Herbert A. Simmons, of whom I had not heard. But according to the little preface by Nolan, this might be his only science fiction. Mostly this is about music and a musician who goes in a band from Earth where they're playing successfully to somewhere else. Mercury? It might be Mercury. And I think that this would probably work better for people who like reading about music. Maybe jazz. I have a lot of books from the 60s that are all hippie and everyone's cat and cool and hip and do you dig. This story was like that, and there were perhaps a little bit too many digs and do you digs and hips and all the rest of it for me. I have heard guitars described by their axe, their weapon of war, by musicians. I've never heard a horn described as an axe before, but Simmons thinks it is. And I'm not sure what sort of horn we're talking about. I get more saxophone vibes than trumpets. I didn't really know what to make of this. I gave it 2 out of 5. I couldn't really follow it. I like the idea of a black musician from Earth and a blue alien from whatever planet we were on getting together. But as the ultimate point of this story, I don't actually know what the ultimate point of this story was. Escaped me. Okay, so next we've got Elegy by Charles Benmore. Elegy by Charles Beaumont. There you go, my writing. My writing, even I can't read it sometimes. So I can't tell with this one exactly when it's from. The 4 notes suggest that it had never been published. I had read this one before. It is an exploration rocket lands on an unmapped asteroid to find a replica of a 50s style Life in America type village. I feel that maybe the author actually wrote for cinema and TV more than for books, and that a Twilight Zone episode was based on it. It's definitely creepy. It's maybe not entirely unpredictable, but it's well written, very enjoyable, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next one is Lap of the Primitive by William F. Nolan, our editor ourself, from 1958. And my comment here is, OMG, this is not the story to read after spending an afternoon at work. Oh, that's right. I spent an afternoon at work working on a anti-sexual harassment in the workplace module, and this was not the book that I needed to follow it up. So a woman is fat, so she can't find a decent husband. She eventually finds a husband who she doesn't like and doesn't find attractive, and who uses all of her money to go and do things that she doesn't want to do. Apparently, Nolan was still firmly enough in the 50s that for a woman to just take her money and do whatever the hell she wanted was totally unacceptable. She had to join the marriage market and take whatever leavings were there. And this was a pass-the-bucket one from start to finish. It probably would have been unfavourable, even if I hadn't just been at work with workplace health and safety modules, but still. He's an arsehole. She's an idiot. I feel that traits from both of these characters are present in the author. Did not love it. And I'm not usually oversensitive about the mores of the time infused into science fiction and fantasy. It's a thing that happens. Historical inequality can be read through fiction as easily as it can be through non-fiction about the era. But this attempt at humour fell completely flat, and the ending was completely ick. And having read this, I feel like I probably read this in the past, got no further in the book, and got rid of the book based on that one. I'm not this time keeping it for the pretty cover. And I probably need to remind myself, 50s, America, I'm glad I wasn't born into them. I gave this 1 out of 5 stars, and I was being generous. The concept had elements of I can cope with you. I think that's where the 1 out of 5 second. Okay, so the next one is The Old College Try by Robert Blocks, another 50s person that I may not have heard of. The Old College Try, that's it. Okay, so this was very colonial in its own way, but it managed to do it in a way that was non-creepy for the modern reader, entertaining, and with a great punchline. So you've got this outgoing administration guy on this planet, which has intelligent hunter-gatherer level of civilization natives, and he's drinking a lot of gin. It felt actually a lot like some of the Gerald Durrell books where he describes people living in the remote jungles of Africa while he's on collecting trips, all the gin and the sitting around and the natives with fans and stuff. So it's definitely colonial, and he meets the incoming administrator who's about to take over and send him back to Earth, and he's busy packing, and the incoming guy is all very boys' school tie and pin sort of thing. You have been colonial, we are going to civilize these natives, and the outgoing one goes, you know, they're not going to much like that. That surges ahead. Administrator ongoing goes out to pack. The incoming one tries to introduce boxing and football and stuff as more healthy pursuits than what the natives actually do. So it feels heavily colonial, it feels very 50s. But overall, the writing meant that it was a lot of fun, and I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. I Am Returning was the next one. It was by Ray Russell. It was a mythic good versus evil type play. It was cute, it was short, it was a what if Lucifer and God was an actual story, but both of them were actually ETs. I loved the concept. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next one is The Undiscovered Country by William F. Temple. The undiscovered country in this case is Pluto, on which an intelligent race have been discovered. This one is a bit naff. So we're on a rocket ship going to Pluto, which of course has got a corrosive atmosphere. It's got all these things, so they can't be there for long. Their mission is to kidnap one of the intelligent race that have been found to live on Pluto and bring them back to Earth for study, if possible, alive. A tricky proposition for a modern person, being as how there's never any doubt that the natives are intelligent and building houses and stuff. But the difference is that they move at a completely different speed to us. We move fast, they move slow. It's kind of like, I don't know, a really fast living bird, or maybe one of the really fast kangaroo rats, tiny marsupial, moves really, really fast, encountering a snail or a slug for the first time, only times 100. Great concept. I liked how it worked. There's an element of kidnapping a naked, beautiful woman and shoving her in the hull, but she makes it work for her. I've got to say, I gave this one 5 out of 5. It was unexpected. I'm 90% certain I've never read it before. Enjoyed it. Next one, Restricted Area by Robert Sheckley, who of course I know. I remember Sheckley as a author I enjoyed, but I don't think I've got any of his at the moment, and I don't think I've read any of his for a while. Okay, I did remember this story, I think. A spaceship lands on a child's dream of a welcoming planet full of gambling, candy-striped animals that are all friendly and helpful, full of trees bearing hundreds of different fruits that are all easily reachable on the bow. The main character is Captain Kilpepper, who is definitely suspicious and morose about the whole thing. In his view, anything where you can't see the flaw has got a flaw waiting to be discovered and may not be discovered in a good way. The science thing discovers a whole heap of weird things. I think I read this as a teenager for the first time. I loved the suspicion and the cynicism back then, and I still do. It feels like a 50s story. There's things like the exploration team goes out, takes photos. The photos are brought back to the ship and they have to be developed. And then they're still wet when the captain looks at them. Cute things like that made it dated and amusing. I gave the story 4 out of 5 stars. Probably because I like the whole thing, but the punchline is good and I'm not going to share it. Read the story. One Love Have I by Robert F. Young comes next. It's a love story from people in what feels like our past but is actually the future. So we start with Philip, who's just come out of cryogenic freezing, what they call suspended animation chambers. He was put in there for political crimes and was frozen for 100 years. And he's on his way, he's been resurrected into this world where he recognizes nothing, knows no one, and he's about to go back to his old house, having heard that all the small villages in, I'm going to guess, rural America, are all abandoned and crumbling since most of the inhabitants have gone to the stars. As he travels there in what sounds like a kind of monorail, He's reminiscing about his wife, how he first saw her, how he loved her, etc. It's a story about love, grief, enemy, I guess, and it is beautifully written, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know who Robert Young is, but I put him on my list of authors to look for more of. Right. Next was Worship Night by Chris Neville. These extensive notes, by the way, are because I finished it back here. So I had a notebook available. I didn't have to remember them or make quick notes on my phone. Okay, so this was another author I didn't know. This was a wonderful little vignette style of writing. And if this is an example of their writing in general, I definitely want to read more of Chris Neville. This is a snapshot of a couple who are retiring. And it is... Sorry, incipient cough. It's incredibly evocative and it's incredibly richly written. So the couple have lived in this apartment on this alien planet for his whole working life. It might be something academic he was doing. It might be something government. We're never quite sure. She, of course, is his wife, so she doesn't work because 50s. Ha! Anyway, he's retiring. Instead of doing the things that people expected them to do, like retiring to Earth and buying a place there, or staying in their apartment, instead of him taking up a history professorship that was offered to him, any of these things, they've decided to buy a small house in a native village on the planet where no other Earth people live, for him to write a book about the early history of the planet that he feels is going to be lost. Much like the guy who wrote the myths into the Kalevala, the Finnish thing, the Finnish mythology, who went around and collected them because he felt that as Christianity was moving in, the old myths were being forgotten. Pardon me. Chick, you want to come? You don't want to come. Okay. Right. The writing is what makes this beautiful. The humanity of our characters makes it intoxicating. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars and probably deserved more. Next story was In Space with Runyon Jones by Norman Corwin. I feel like I do know Norman Corwin, because Corwin, I think that's a Hungarian name, and it happens to be the name Roger Zelazny uses for one of my favourite protagonists in Roger Zelazny land. That's my bird. Sorry, he's having fun. This was a zany story, In Space with Runyon Jones was, which apparently aims to be cute in its illogicness. That's not a word. Illogicity. It's apparently trying to use a complete lack of logic in the progression for cute factor. It was very quirky. I don't always love quirk in sci-fi, but as a short story, I could take a break from the quirk as necessary. I mean, what else really is to say about it? It's... what else can I say about it? It was... It's some guy looking for his dog called Pootsie by buying a ticket to go into outer space. Apparently he does find Pootsie in the air. Quirk. Deep in quirk. If you love quirk, this one's for you. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars because it was short and I got through it fast. Next story is The Ties That Bind by Walter M. Miller Jr. Didn't have high hopes. Walter M. Miller Jr. wrote A Canticle for Leibowitz. I am in a club of 1, I believe, in loathing that. That's by far my least favourite sci-fi that I've ever read. Everyone else seems to adore it. Don't know why. So I didn't have high hopes for this. But overall, the concept was good. The concept in Canticle for Leibowitz is good. I think the concept here is better. So you've got a future in which all of humanity... large portions of humanity have left Earth. They've colonized other planets. There were like 12 planets who were all colonized. 5 wanted to break away into their own empire. So the rest got together, leveled them. There's a lot of people fighting each other and killing each other. And this fleet of stars under Commander, whatever the hell his name was, is on its way to Ursa, where they think there's another colony and they think they might be able to live. They're all men, so I don't know how they're going to colonize, but, you know, maybe they've got android women or mechanical wounds or something. Who knows? Anyway, in order to get to Ursa Minor, they have to pass past Earth. Earth has turned into this almost creepily Garden of Eden. Everyone's happy, nature is great, people are kind, there's no nastiness or war, there aren't even words for it. And this admiral of war lands there to basically deforest, depopulate and mine the planet so that they can get the resources they need to continue on their journey. Miller seems to have some concept about, well, do you want to? You don't want to, okay. My bird is cranky with me because it's cold. Miller seems to have some concept that there's this Wunderkinds. What word did he use? A really long word that meant nothing to me. But I'm going to guess that it was based on some kind of philosophy or psychology concept that was current at the time and has been discredited to the point that no one hears about it anymore. Kulturverlängerung. Kulturverlängerung. If you speak German, tell me what it means. I'm pretty sure it's German. His concept is that you've got a racial memory in everyone, so I may not remember the tasks that my mother or father did, I may never have learned of them, but if I take them up, I'm going to take them up and do them better than someone else whose parents didn't do them. It's a complete, I think that's completely been discredited, but you know, Miller liked it. It's central to the whole concept, and you've got one translator guy who's opposed to denuding the earth and killing off all its inhabitants. So, the evil in the heart of soul or man, blah, blah, blah. Original sin seems to be throughout it, and I think that conforms to Miller's little thing. But as a overall story, it's pretty good, so I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. There was one thing about it that I particularly liked was constant references to an anonymous, I think it's I'm pretty sure it's a Scottish poetry. Cultural, not poetry, cultural song, stanza, whatever. And I'd read that before and I really liked it. I don't know why Miller put it in. It's like, I've got no idea what he's trying to convey with it. Maybe like me, he read it once upon a time and he really liked it, so he put it in there. Anyway, that seems as likely as anything else. One stanza, for example, is, "And whatten penance will he dree for that, Edward, Edward? Whatten penance will he dree for that? My dear son, now tell me, oh. I'll set my feet in yonder boat, mither. I'll set my feet in yonder boat, and I'll fare over the sea, oh." There's this whole thing about someone who's killed, who comes home with his blood on his sword. I actually like that poem better than I like the story, but I still gave the story 3 out of 5. Okay, so that's the end of A Sea of Space, a very 50s collection that feels self-indulgent on the part of Nolan, but has some good stories and some good authors in there. It's got a couple of great stories. I'm glad I read it. I'm going to hang on to it. I'll probably read it in about 10 years when the quirk has faded in my mind and I'm curious about it. Tell me if you read it. Tell me if you know all these anonymous people. There's readers out there that read far more in the 50s than me, so maybe they know more about these authors. And I'd kind of be curious to hear more of it. Anyway, thank you for watching this rambling short story review, and read good books. Always read good books.